Today, we are speaking about the topic of education, certainly a conversation that has been at the forefront, especially in recent days, as we decide how to move forward with our children and virtual learning. Now, today we sit down with the Minister of Education, Dr. the Honorable Natalia Whitley, who is going to be speaking on government's decision to reopen schools until after October 31st. All that and so much more after we return.
Is business slow, cash flow down, hosting an upcoming event? We can help. Advertise with 284 Media and take your business or event to the next level by enhancing your present marketing and messaging strategies. Allow our team of experts to create a personalized ad that sets your business apart from all the rest. This could be your business or event. So, what are you waiting for? Contact our marketing team at 284media at cctbvi.com. Advertising with us works.
Viewers, as promised, we have in studio with us the Minister of Education, Dr. the Honorable Natalia Whitley. Not for the very first time, but we'd like to say welcome.
Thank you, Javon, for having me at 284 Media, and thank you to the whole team.
All right, so the government of the Virgin Islands recently made a decision to keep schools closed until October 31st of this year. Initially, we heard schools were reopening just around September. What would have happened between those two announcements that would have caused government to postpone the physical reopening of school?
Thank you for allowing me to provide some clarity. There's been some confusion based on the announcement that has been made, and I'm happy to be able to clear it up for persons. Firstly, government has not made a decision to keep schools closed until October 31st.
Okay.
What has happened is that the Minister of Health and Social Development, under his powers, can issue a suppression and control order. And this is the order that originally closed schools somewhere back in March. Now, these orders are done for 3 months at a time. So we did one in March, and then coming towards the end of July, we had to do another order. And the order basically continues on the last decisions, which were decisions made in cabinet. Now, when cabinet makes a decision on schools, which cabinet will be making a decision on schools shortly, the order will be amended to reflect the decision of cabinet. So all that has happened with this order is that it continues for another 3 months the last set of decisions that cabinet has made in relation to schools. So cabinet, back in March, decided that schools would remain closed until cabinet makes a decision to do otherwise. So that's reflected in this particular order. The moment that cabinet makes a decision on schools, and I have to tell the public that a plan has been constructed by officials in the Ministry of Education. The plan has been circulated to all stakeholders, including schools, and all the schools would be fully aware that we've circulated this plan in terms of how school would look come September 21st, subject to the approval of cabinet. And we are basically proposing a blended system of online learning and face-to-face instruction. We will not be able to accommodate all the students in school because of social distancing. And we certainly will be observing social distancing in the new school year.
Okay.
And for the bigger schools, they certainly won't be able to accommodate all the students at the same time. So we're proposing somewhat of a shift system where some students would be in school and some students would be at home, and then of course those who are at home will have an opportunity to be at school at some point. And the education officials have, I believe, done a good job of proposing a system that blends both. in a situation
Okay.
where schools are big enough and they have small enough student populations to be able to accommodate all the students, then all the students would be able to attend without having to resort to the shift system.
Okay. So you mentioned that a plan was circulated and it was circulated to all the schools. Does this include public and private schools? And can you say when specifically this plan went out? Because I think most parents, or at this point, some teachers even seem oblivious to the fact that there is a plan in place as it relates to the schools and reopening.
Oh yes, I can assure the members of the public that there is a plan in place. The plan may not have been shared with all the teachers. We had a committee in place that was comprised of some teachers, principals, and other persons who specialize in special educational needs, etc., on a committee to help to construct what school would look like in the new school year. And this certainly wouldn't have been shared with the public because this plan would have to be approved by cabinet before it became an official plan. So this plan really was circulated mainly for the feedback of key stakeholders in constructing a plan that could go to the cabinet and hopefully be approved by the cabinet. So even what I'm saying about how school would look in September is subject to the approval of cabinet, and persons should understand that. Cabinet is the highest decision-making authority in the Virgin Islands, and even though the Minister of Health has the power to make these orders, he has been bringing them to cabinet for discussion.
You did mention cabinet as the highest decision-making body. Now, what are some of the key performance indicators? For example, if well, I should say the public has been complaining about the fact that, as soon as a case is discovered within the BVI, the rules seemingly change or adjusted to fit that situation. I think as it relates to the British Virgin Islands in comparison to the rest of the region and the rest of the world, we are in a pretty good condition, possibly COVID-free outside of this one recent case that was imported. What then are some of the key performance indicators that cabinet itself would be looking at as it relates to a definite reopening of schools come September?
Well, let me just say, Javon, that the reason why we have low cases in the BVI is because cabinet and all other persons involved have been willing to make sometimes very difficult decisions, sometimes decisions that the public is not happy with because, of course, persons speak about their civil liberties, they speak about their ability to live their life in a normal way. But if you look around the world and you see what COVID-19 is doing around the world, you will know that governments have a real responsibility to make sure that the population remains safe. We have a limited amount of hospital beds. We have a limited amount of ventilators. So we're doing everything within our power to make sure that the virus that causes COVID-19 does not spread in the Virgin Islands, possibly causing the loss of life. And in a small population like this one, it can have devastating effects in the Virgin Islands. As it pertains to schools, we had a case recently, and that case was found in quarantine, which means that the quarantine measures and the other measures that we're putting in place have worked by and large. Now, what would be extremely concerning, and I speak for myself, of course, I cannot speak for the entire cabinet, but just based on my participation in cabinet, I can say with pretty much authority that we would be very concerned if we saw community spread, meaning that we had person-to-person transmission in the community and we do not know who is transmitting the virus. I'm grateful, I'm thankful that we've been able to proceed thus far without that being the case. If you look at the nearby United States Virgin Islands, they're discovering dozens and dozens of cases every day. And it becomes very clear that they're not quite sure who has COVID-19, who's spreading it. And in a situation like that, you know that you cannot have institutions like schools, which are by their very nature mass gatherings, open, because it can spread uncontrollably through schools. The students, even though young persons generally do not have severe illness as it pertains to COVID-19, they can bring it home to their parents, to their grandparents, the more vulnerable members of society who have much higher death rates.
Do you agree that as a territory we need to contain the virus as opposed to avoiding it?
Well, you want to avoid it at all costs, and if you have instances of the virus, you have to contain it very quickly and limit any type of spread. But Javon, we've been having a debate in the world about how we deal with COVID-19. Some persons want to see the BVI open up. Some persons want to see the loosening of restrictions in terms of the social distancing measures and the other protocols. And if we look at, let's just say the United States of America, where this debate has been raging on, quite a number of places which have opened up completely because they're more concerned about the economy, they've had to shut right back down because the cases start to spread. I believe right now in America, they're averaging about 1,000 deaths a day. And that is something that's astronomical kind of death rate. And, you know, we get into a lot of abstract theory when we talk about whether we contain or we avoid. But what really we need to do as much as possible is do what is proven to preserve life, which is the most important thing that we have right now. If you don't have life, you can't have an economy. So it's important for us to avoid COVID-19 at all costs, meaning by if we can keep it out of our borders, we try our best. We have our nationals who are returning home. We have quarantine for 14 days. By and large, that has worked very well for us. And going forward, Cabinet will make decisions as it pertains to open up the Virgin Islands further based on the conditions, the external conditions, what's happening external in the region, what's happening in the United States of America, and what's happening here internally. And we'll be able to make decisions based on data, based on information, not just based on, you know, reckless opinions and emotions.
All right, as it relates to virtual learning, this has been quite a transition for parents, for teachers, and especially our students. What has been the feedback or the general consensus thus far? And as a ministry, how are you able to assess the success of online schooling?
Well, I would have to say that it has been successful from the standpoint that we were able to complete the Trinity term online. And that's a huge accomplishment, Javon. When you think about it, I can't really think of a time in the history of the Virgin Islands when it would have been possible for persons to complete an entire term without being in the actual physical infrastructure of the school. So that's a huge accomplishment, and we can't take that for granted. And I want to congratulate the Ministry of Education. I want to congratulate the principals, the teachers, the parents, and especially the students for pushing through something that was incredibly difficult. They showed their resilience, and they were able to complete it. So just being able to get through the term successfully, I would say, is a success. When we questioned students, there were quite a number of students who actually liked it. They liked it because they had a lot more hands-on interaction. They had the assistance of parents or other family members to be able to get through it. Certainly, we've been speaking about...
I'm sorry, I have to cut you off there a little bit. I know you mentioned that some students have the support of their family. But I think that's equally one of the main concerns coming out to the virtual online schooling system. And we're not knocking the system. As a territory, we are forced to adjust. But realistically, we're looking at the way forward. And one of the concerns are, parents or students are in a position where they're not supported by some parents because they have to go out. Single mothers have to be at work. Realistically, adults have to be out making a living. So then in situations like that, who supports that child? Another instance we've heard about is parents, what it's parents, grandparents, cousins, family members doing the schoolwork for the student and not necessarily fully having that student engaged in the process. So that's of equal concern as well.
That is indeed a fact, Javon. We do have individuals who have not been able to be there with their children, and it is concerning. And that's why in the new school term, we're proposing a plan where persons would be able to go into school, which would mitigate against some of those challenges. And I'm grateful for those persons who have put arrangements in place to ensure that their students will be able to be successful with the online schooling this year. In terms of parents doing work for students, I've heard some of that as well. And that really speaks to the integrity of the parents in this particular process. And I would encourage parents to make sure that their children, they're learning and that they're getting the most out of the situation. And I have to say to you, Javon, that parents doing work for children is not something that's new. That was not introduced with online learning. I mean, we've heard for many years that we have parents who do school projects for children, they do their homework for them. And I would just encourage them to stop doing that because they're really handicapping their children and placing them at a great disadvantage. I have to really big up the teachers and the principals, because I've discussed with principals and teachers and they've come up with some very creative ways of assessing students in a way that the parents at home would not be able to do it for them. For instance, you have principals who had assessments where the children had to do presentations on camera. And they had to, they questioned them on camera, in the video camera. There was no parent there to answer for them. There's no parent there to do the work for them. It would become very clear and very apparent whether the child was ready or not. And I really want to celebrate our children because I don't want anybody to rob our children of the hard work that they did this semester, this term to get through the school year. Many persons speak about parents doing work for children, but I know quite a number of those children worked very hard to get through the term and to get through the online schooling, and some of them who would have had their graduations. They work hard for that, and I don't want anybody in the community robbing them of all the hard work they did to accomplish their tasks. We have some very good students in the education system, and they believe in education, and they work very hard. So I congratulate the students for their hard work.
We do as well. Now, you spoke about alternating between a shift and in-school system come September 21st, of course, subject to changes by the Cabinet of the Virgin Islands. Now, let's just speak to that. Virtual learning, one of the concerns arising is a constant concern is the stability of internet. Definitely one of the sore issues in our community as we try to address how to deal with this. What is being done as a government to ensure that as a result of these poor infrastructures that no child is being left behind?
Well, it's not my portfolio. It's actually under the Premier. But just based on what I've heard from the Premier and what I know about him, he has been working very hard with the Telecommunications Regulatory Commission to make sure that the service providers are providing a quality service. I know that the Premier has not been happy with the quality of the service we've been getting thus far. I know he knows that we can have better service here in the territory, and he's taken very measured and focused steps to be able to get better service from the service providers. In addition to that, I would have to say, having discussions with service providers, we have these Wi-Fi boxes, and a lot of us got these boxes after the hurricanes, of course, because a lot of the infrastructure was damaged or destroyed. And when you have fixed line connections, it provides a lot more stability to your internet connections. So persons should consider, if they're having difficulties, considering whether having a fixed line connection can ease some of the burden on the online network and the data packages that they're having. And we've engaged the providers, Digicel, Flow, and CCT, about being able to provide internet at an affordable cost. We've had persons come with packages specifically for the students at a price point that they can afford. We did a survey some months ago when we were engaging with the online learning, and the parents said that they could afford to pay a particular price. And we've had service providers who have come up with packages to be able to accommodate the needs of the learning community, and we're grateful to those service providers for that. We've had service providers who have zero-rated sites for us, and we're grateful for that as well. And I think that there's more that can be done as we go forward. Certainly, with a blended system, we shouldn't have as much strain on the online system as what has happened in this Trinity term. But I do think that it's important for us to continue to improve access to internet.
Noted. What about the laptops? I know one of the concerns as well is accessibility for our students. I know the government was sourcing some laptops. There were some donations as well. Can you say if they were distributed as yet?
We've received quite a lot of laptops and Chromebooks, many of them through donation, and we are grateful to our corporate partners for investing in the education of the children of the territory. Now, we also did source 500 laptops directly from government. Government procured those through a local company, Infinite Solutions. And the challenge is because the whole world basically had to shift to online learning, everybody was buying up the laptops. So we had some challenges. Infinite Solutions expressed that they had some challenges in terms of the date when the laptops would arrive. The date kept getting pushed back because the suppliers were running out of laptops all the time. We're hopeful that we'll receive those laptops before the beginning of the new school year. But I'm grateful that many parents and students, we had VIDEs that we provided, that existed on the island that we provided to students. And we had, of course, the donated devices which have been able to fill a gap. So we're grateful that also parents went out and they invested in the education of their children and they purchased laptops. So we're grateful for that.
All right, so again, September 21st is still the date to be considered. I know a lot of persons are really concerned about October 31st, which was recently circulated in the news as a result of that order. You're saying Cabinet is soon to make a decision on the way forward for education. Can you say how soon that's going to be?
Well, really, I would like to see something happen, a decision made within the next 2 weeks, or even sooner, for that matter. But I cannot certainly preempt a decision by Cabinet. But I can only say that I'm going to push hard to get the plan approved so persons can know what's happening in September. And if I can, Javon, I just want to say as well that the last control and suppression order announced by the Minister of Health inadvertently omitted a section that approved summer school, daycares, and preschools to operate. That was a mistake.
We were just about to get to that one, so I'm glad you made that clarification. That means that summer camps are allowed to open as well.
Yes, summer camps can continue, daycares and preschools can continue to operate. We are working with the Attorney General's office to get that included in the order. It should have been included in the order because Cabinet did make a decision to open daycares, preschools, and summer schools, and Cabinet has not reversed that decision. So the order should reflect that decision of Cabinet. So that was something that was inadvertent. It was a mistake, and I want to ask forgiveness for the confusion that has caused to our daycares, our preschools, and our summer schools. But you can continue to operate while we get the order amended.
All right, and just as a point of clarity, the rules that are being enforced as it relates to schools and the closure of schools until changes are made by Cabinet, does this apply to private schools as well?
Yes, this applies to all schools. And when Cabinet makes a decision, it will apply to both public and private schools.
All right, Honorable Minister, I want to thank you so much. I do think that we, as a territory, we have a moral obligation to educate our children, whether there is a pandemic going on or not. And I pray that as a cabinet and as the government of the Virgin Islands, like you said, steps are being made to ensure that we can reach out to all students. And like you said, there's going to be a virtual system as well as an in-school system, alternating at times. Hopefully that will work until we can return to some level of normalcy, not just here in the British Virgin Islands, but across the world.
Yes, well, I'm glad that you mentioned across the world. These challenges that we're going through, they're not unique to the Virgin Islands. In fact, I think sometimes we're very hard on ourselves. We've done a pretty good job in terms of being able to make that transition. Our students have done an astronomical job in transitioning. They've shown their resilience. I want to congratulate the students. I want to congratulate the parents. I want to congratulate the principals, the teachers, all the education officers, the permanent secretary. Congratulate all of them for the fantastic job that they've done to keep school going, to have continuity in our education system. And I know that as we approach a new school year, that we'll only get stronger and better. So let's encourage each other and let's all do our part to keep the Virgin Islands going strong.
All right, viewers, that was the Minister of Education, Dr. the Honorable Natalia Wheatley, speaking to government's recent decisions on education. Like he said, September 21st is the day to look at until changes are made by the Cabinet of the Virgin Islands, which is hopefully very soon. My name is Javon Wilson, and this has been your 284 Media exclusive. Thank you for joining us.